revealed how a humble maid's $1,000 agreement changed her life in an incredible love story. Maria's heart raced as she wiped the sweat from her brow, battling her own exhaustion after hours of scrubbing floors at the hospital. Each moment felt like an uphill battle, a relentless grind of her 3 jobs just to keep food on the table for her ailing mother and younger siblings. They were on the brink of losing the little home that had been a sanctuary filled with laughter and dreams, nurtured by a single mom who taught her the value of hard work and integrity. As she plucked a stray hair from her face, her phone rang, disrupting the fog of fatigue. "Hello?" Her voice cracked, reflecting her weariness. The voice on the other end was smooth, confident, a businessman named David who was a world away from her struggles. He had mistakenly hired her for a lavish charity gala he was coordinating. $1,000. The money flashed before her eyes, a lifeline dangling just beyond her grasp. But questions buzzed in her mind. Was she worth that kind of money? She felt like an imposter, an unworthy soul in a universe of glitz and glam. But the desperation to provide for her family overshadowed her self-doubt. She took a deep breath. "I'll do it," she said, her heart pounding against her ribs. Walking into David's mansion felt like entering a realm of dreams she didn't belong to. The pristine marble floors gleamed under the chandelier's warm glow. She stood a bit taller, but inside, she felt small. Everyone around her was polished, dressed in shimmering gowns and tailored suits. As Maria began to set up, the air crackled with an air of unapproachable allure. Each glimmer transformed her surroundings into a beautiful prison of unattainable standards. David approached her, his presence commanding, yet he wore an expression of mild curiosity. "You can handle the decor, right?" Her pride stung at his casual dismissal. She was more than just a maid. "I can handle myself," she retorted, frustration bubbling to the surface. Their conversations danced between tension and misunderstanding. David, fresh-faced and oblivious, struggled to see the mountains Maria moved for her family. Meanwhile, she recognized the weight of his financial world, but couldn't shake the feeling that he was part of the problem, just another heir to privilege unaware of hardship. As storm clouds rolled in, the night turned chaotic. Flood warnings buzzed on phones and the community began to panic. Maria's heart twisted in two. Shouldn't she stay and help? Amid their chaotic preparations, they were drawn together, like ships navigating a storm. Side by side, they worked to help stricken community members affected by the deluge, gradually peeling back layers of prejudice and misunderstanding. As the realization of shared struggles passed between them like an electric current, hope ignited in her chest. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening.
YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can, drop a like. It really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But just as they began to understand each other, shadows loomed over the gala. Rumors began to swirl about David, rippling through the high society crowd like a fever. Whispers of hidden secrets threatened to expose everything. They were no longer just a maid and a businessman. They were intertwined in a budding romance that illuminated Maria's heart like dawn breaking. Gala night shimmered before her, a dangerous blend of excitement and dread. Maria stood at a crossroads, the choice to let her heart open to this man or retreat back into shadows. Time slowed as the music faded into whispers. A powerful energy filled the air. And in that pivotal moment, the crowd erupted in stunned silence as David's truth unraveled. Maria's breath caught in her throat. What would she do? Would she step forward or take a step back? Her heart raced with uncertainty, leaving readers holding their breath, eager to discover her decision. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as David stood among the crowd, his face a mix of vulnerability and determination. Footsteps echoed, and Maria felt a magnetic pull toward him. Around her, the murmurs surged, a wave of confusion and curiosity. Though fear whispered to her, she stepped closer, drawn by a force beyond her control. "Maria!" David's voice cut through the noise, sharp and clear. All eyes turned to her, and a chill swept through her. There she was, the maid in a sea of opulence, a silhouette against the backdrop of dazzling chandeliers and expensive fabric. And yet, in that moment, amidst the chaos, there was warmth emanating from him. "Let me explain," he started, his gaze locked onto hers. Her heart thumped wildly. All the worries, the judgments, none of it mattered as their worlds collided. He took a breath, pushing back against the whispers circling around them. "I didn't want to keep this from you. I thought..." "Thought what? That I wouldn't understand," Maria interrupted, her voice stronger than she felt. The truth was, she was terrified of losing the fragile connection they had built, but she couldn't ignore the doubts clawing at her heart. David frowned. "I thought I was protecting you," he said, sincerity lacing his tone. "I come from a family that prefers to keep certain things hidden, but that doesn't change what I feel for you." There it was, out in the open. His confession hung in the air, a fragile bridge spiraling between their two worlds. Could they truly cross it? Maria inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of expectations pressing down.
Could the son of wealth navigate the rugged current of her life? But then, before she could respond, he continued, "They think my charity is just a front. I know it's not my fault, but the shadows follow me. You make me feel whole. I want you to meet my family, to see what I'm really doing." Their gazes remained locked, and Maria's heart battled between awe and anger. The romance she had hesitated to embrace felt suddenly like a spark threatening to ignite or destroy. Fears wrapped around her like a vine, each tendril whispering insecurities. A woman from the crowd sneered, "He only fancies her because she's different. This is a joke." Others murmured in agreement, and Maria's heart sank. "Is it? Is that why I'm drawn to her?" David challenged, his voice steady yet impassioned. "You think I don't see her strength? You think it's just her background? No, it's her spirit. It's everything she's doing for her family. I admire that." A sudden flicker of admiration washed over the crowd, though skepticism lingered. The tides of judgment ebbed slightly as David held Maria's gaze, vulnerable yet defiant. Her pulse quickened, the tension palpable between them. "Maria," he continued, desperation lining his voice, "don't let their words erase what we have." A filter of unease pressed down on her shoulders. The wealthy didn't find comfort in the raw edges of life, and yet David stood unafraid, ready to challenge the norm. Maria's thoughts raced. Could this man, caught in a world of privilege, truly understand the depths of her reality? Tears prickled her eyes, not from sadness, but a suffocating blend of fear and hope. She wanted him to rescue her in so many ways, yet she feared it would only throw them into deeper waters. The silence around them was thick, heavy with anticipation. All eyes were watching, and the weight of their choices felt monumental. Would she dare take a leap? Would she trust David enough to step into the unknown he offered? Maria hesitated, breath failing her, searching for words. The clock ticked down as moments stretched into eternity. Just then, the doors slammed open, and a panicked figure rushed in, drawing every gaze. "Help! The floods are rising again!" In an instant, Maria's heart shifted. A new urgency poured into the night as she and David turned toward the chaos unfolding outside. There was no longer time for hesitation. In the face of rising water and desperate community members, Maria knew what she had to do. But what would happen to their budding relationship when the storm settled? As they rushed together toward the front entrance, hand in hand amid the chaos, she felt a flicker of resolve. Maybe love could survive these turbulent tides. The question now was, would they embrace the storm or be swept away? As they stepped outside, the cool night air hit them like a slap, sharp and invigorating, contrasting the warmth they had just shared. The sounds of chaos erupted around them, people yelling, scrambling for safety, and the roar of water threatening to swallow everything in its path. Maria's heart raced, the urgency of the situation replacing every lingering doubt she had about David. "Look!" David shouted above the din as he pointed towards the town square. Water began to pool in the streets, glimmering ominously under the flickering streetlights. Shadows darted as families gathered, struggling to help one another. With panic rising in her throat, Maria squeezed David's hand tighter. "We need to help. They'll drown if we don't act fast." "Right," he replied, nodding, his expression shifting from anguish to determination. They dashed toward the gathering, a flurry of movement and energy. As they reached the heart of the chaos, the group of neighbors began forming a human chain, shouting instructions to each other. Maria felt a rush of adrenaline. It was time to fight for her community.
She quickly joined the line, pulling David with her. Together, they linked hands with others to pass buckets of gathered belongings and supplies from the flooded homes. "What do we do?" David asked eagerly, glancing at Maria with equal parts admiration and urgency. "Just keep passing. We have to save what we can." She felt alive, a fierce light igniting in her chest. With each passed bucket, the worry from before faded slightly. Glimpses of smiles and words of gratitude rose amidst the chaos. "Thank you," someone yelled, their eyes shining through the growing distress. "Don't stop now," another shouted, words of encouragement morphing into collective motivation. David's presence beside her ignited strength she never knew she had. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from nearby. The crowd froze, and eyes darted toward the noise, hearts pounding. A wall had given way, and water surged violently into the square, threatening to sweep everything away. "Everyone back!" David yelled instinctively. "Get to higher ground!" He grabbed Maria's hand and began pulling her just as the rushing water began its furious sweep through the square. Fear danced in Maria's veins, but with David's grip grounding her, she felt a surge of hope. "We can't leave them! We have to help!" she shouted over the roar, desperation in her voice. His jaw tightened, conflict washing over his features. "I get it, but we can't do anything if we get caught in this too." In that moment, Maria captured the strength of his resolve with her eyes. The swirling world around them blurred into the background. "Please, just trust me," she urged. "We can do both. Work together." With urgency coursing through her, they turned back. That faint flicker of connection they had shared was now a burning flame, fueling her passion to serve their community as they worked frantically toward the people trapped near the flooding homes.
Together, side by side, they gripped each other's hands always, fear and love intertwining as they dove deeper into the chaos. She couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was unfolding. The storm wouldn't just change their community, but perhaps redefine whatever was blossoming between them. With more hands joining, more voices shouting commands, the collective resolve surged. Even in the darkest moments, hope flickered bright. But just as Maria began to believe in a brighter outcome, a sudden wave crashed into the crowd, knocking people off their feet. Panic ensued. As she turned to check on David, her heart dropped. He was nowhere to be found. "David!" she cried out over the clamor, dread pooling inside her. Was this storm about to claim everything she treasured? Could she fight against the storm, or would it take away the hope she had just begun to feel? Tears pricked at Maria's eyes as the chaos wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. She scanned the thicket of frantic faces, searching desperately for David. The water was rising fast, swallowing the concrete ground and the feet that once stood steady. She could hear the crackle of electricity in the air, smell the dampness mixed with the raw fear pulsing in the crowd.
"David!"
Her voice cracked, fighting against the clamor. Panic was a living creature in her throat, clawing at her, pushing her towards despair.
"Stay calm!"
a neighbor shouted as she struggled to keep her footing, flailing against the torrent. Just then, a glimmer of movement caught her eye. A family clinging to a lamppost, their faces distorted in terror. Maria felt her heart lurch. "Help them!" she yelled to the line of human links still passing buckets. "No! Maria!" David's voice roared from the right, clear and strong. "Get up here!" She turned, desperation driving her feet toward him. He was kneeling, pulling a girl who had fallen back to her feet. The girl's mother grasped onto David's arm, terror etched across her face. "My baby, please!" "Take her!" David shouted, pushing the girl into Maria's arms. In that brief moment, where hope and panic collided, Maria felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She nodded despite her heart racing. "I've got her!" With immediate instinct, Maria cradled the girl tightly, keeping her head above the rising water. David moved back to help the mother as more people yelled for help. "Hold on to me," he instructed, arms outstretched as he pulled another neighbor forward, like a lifeline in a churning sea. Maria held her breath, eyes glued to David. It was all happening in bleary bursts, the water crashing, the frantic shouts, the cries of families merging into one desperate symphony. But there was something about David's determination that steeled her nerve. It ignited a fire within her. "Come on," she urged, her voice echoing strength as she turned back to the girl. "You're safe."
They were now a part of something bigger, a wall against the rising tide, their hands woven through the chaos. "We can do this!" Maria shouted back to the growing chain, her spirit blazing to relay a chorus of hope. As they worked, night turned to uncertainty, and every surge of water felt like a reminder of what could be lost. Hours seemed to pass, but Maria held tight to each moment. With every voice and every hand, they formed barriers against despair. Yet, among the sense of urgency and surged adrenaline, unease settled in her stomach. David was still working tirelessly, pulling another person to safety. But each time she looked toward him, her heart raced with fear that he might be swallowed by the chaos around them. There was a moment, a brief flicker of clarity as she glanced around the sea of faces. Hope tinged with fear mingled in the air. A stranger climbed a nearby car roof to survey the situation, and the stubborn spirit of resilience shone like a beacon through the swirling darkness. Then suddenly, just as Maria was about to step back toward the line, the ground beneath her shifted violently, sending a shock up her spine. "David!" she screamed, the floor heaving beneath her feet, and chaos erupted again. The world around her darkened, waves crashing against her as the storm surged forward. It was a gaping maw of uncertainty. She stumbled backward, losing her grip on the girl, her heart pounding louder than the thundering water. Where was David now? Rising from the turmoil of the storm, could she gather the strength to find him once again? Would this night shatter everything they had fought for? The tumult that followed was all-consuming. As Maria steadied herself against the creeping terror, the water roared around her like a beast, and she felt all the light slip away, replaced by the weight of fear pressing down on her chest. With a quick glance over her shoulder, she saw the terrified faces of neighbors and strangers merging into a portrait of sheer desperation. "Maria!" A voice fractured through the haze. It wasn't David, but it carried a weight of urgency. One of the neighbors, Mrs. Thompson, reached out, her eyes wild. "We have to get to higher ground, now!" Without a second thought, Maria nodded, fighting the urge to call out for David again. She glanced down at the girl in her arms, whose wide, terrified eyes reflected the flashing chaos. "Come on, we need to move," she said, trying to inject her voice with a confidence she didn't quite feel. Mrs. Thompson moved to assist her as they carefully navigated the screaming masses. Each step was a struggle, but the determination grew in Maria. She couldn't falter now, not when there were lives at stake, not with David somewhere in this turmoil. "Hold on tight," she instructed the little girl, gripping her close as they waded through the murky water. Kneeling before her, Maria locked eyes with the child. "I won't let you go. We're going to be okay." The girl nodded, bravely biting her lip. As they pushed forward, terror rippled through Maria again. The upswell of the water surged around her, and she felt it splashing against her legs. Where was David? In her heart, a dark fear brewed, a dread that he might still be struggling back where she lost sight of him. Just as they reached a more solid ground, she felt an urgent pull at her sleeve. "Look!" The girl pointed toward the gathering of bodies, a cluster huddling in the shadows of what had once been a sturdy building. Maria's breath caught in her throat. She saw David there, pulling someone limping from the wreckage. Relief rushed over her, but it was brief, quickly eclipsed by the reminder of their perilous reality. The ground quaked violently again, sending a tremor through Maria and shaking the nerves of everyone around her. She stumbled, but caught herself. "Stay together! We need to help them!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the panic like a lifeboat through stormy seas. With no time to waste, she and Mrs. Thompson surged forward, joining the effort. The crowd's collective strength became a formidable force. As they reached David's side, Maria felt her heart pounding in synchrony with their desperate attempts to rescue others, hands working in fervent unity. "Maria!" David's voice burst through the noise, filled with both joy and urgency. "We need to create a human chain. We can save them all." Hope surged in her chest as their eyes met. "Let's do this!" she shouted back, her spirit ignited as she surged into action beside him. Together, they pulled people toward safety, each face a flicker of courage in the raging storm. But just as victory began to feel tangible, a deafening roar drowned out their voices. A wall of water was barreling toward them, swift and merciless. In that moment, everything shifted. Fear gripped Maria's heart again. "Get down! Everyone move!" she cried, grabbing the girl, forcing them all closer to the ground as the rush echoed in her ears. She realized that they were facing something that could destroy them all. Would their makeshift chain be enough? Would they stand against nature's fury, or would it swallow their hopes whole? Maria felt the ground beneath her tremble, and dread wrapped around her like a freezing fog. The wall of water drew closer, its roar drowning out every other sound. She clutched the little girl tighter, eyes darting around for escape. The faces around her twisted in fear, breaths quickening in frantic bursts.
Form a line! Grab onto each other! David shouted, his voice fierce yet steadied with purpose. He turned, instantly taking control of the chaos, and Maria drew strength from his presence. In an instant, they were a team again. Through the panic, through the storm. Maria and David formed the anchor of a human chain, pulling in neighbors and strangers alike as the tide clawed at their feet. A few desperate souls joined them, fear etched on their faces, hands gripping tightly as if their lives depended on it, because they did. "Look out!" a voice yelled, but it was too late. A massive wave crashed against the group, sending water gushing over their bodies. Maria felt her feet give way, the slowering force dragging her down. "Hold on!" David's shout cut through the torrent. With a swift motion, he wrapped his free arm around her waist just as she submerged, their connection firm against the pull of the raging river. Gasping for air, Maria kicked upward, driven by a primal need to survive. She emerged, spluttering, with the girl's small form slipping between her and David. Panic surged anew. "Get the girl! David!" she gasped, desperation clawing at her throat as she stretched a hand toward her. "I got her!" David's grip tightened around the little girl, his face fierce with determination. He hoisted her onto his shoulder, a fragile beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Together, they fought through the foamy chaos, pushing against the hungry tide. Each pull felt monumental, a battle against unrelenting nature. Maria dug her heels into the mud, finding that core of strength she had to fight for. "Everyone, get to the trees!" Mrs. Thompson's voice sliced through the din, her command galvanizing their shrinking group. Eyeing the looming trunks in the distance, Maria locked her gaze on David, the steadfast light in her overwhelming storm. "We can make it!" she shouted above the tumult, her heart pounding in perfect rhythm with their struggle. With every ounce of will, they surged forward, each step, every breath a fight for survival. The water splashed violently, threatening to wash them all away, but they were relentless. Finally, they reached the trees, scrambling for purchase and safety as they clung on to branches and roots. The little girl squealed, the terror momentarily lifting from her face. Maria exhaled, relief flooding her chest. "We did it! We're safe!" she exclaimed, tears creeping down her cheeks. David grinned, a balm in the chaos, before the moment shattered. A roar echoed again, more fierce this time, the earth beneath them trembling violently. Maria's heart stuttered in her chest. This battle was far from over. "What now?" she shouted, dread pooling in her stomach. But just as David was about to respond, the ground cracked open at their feet. He grabbed her tightly, the little girl clinging to his back as they were thrust into darkness. What awaited them in the abyss? Would they find the strength to keep fighting, or would they be swallowed whole by the unyielding tide? Maria's heart raced as they fell into the void. The suffocating darkness surrounded them, an encroaching blackness that swallowed every flicker of hope. She instinctively clung to David, their connection serving as a fragile lifeline. The little girl squealed again, her small grip on David's shoulder tightening, echoing Maria's own fear.
Suddenly, the rush of water engulfed them again. Instead of pulling them apart, it seemed to push them deeper into the unknown. The sound of the storm faded, replaced by a heavy silence, punctuated only by their hurried breaths. "David!" she cried out, a hint of panic twisting her words. "Are you okay?" "I'm here," he replied, his voice steady, but Maria could hear the strain. With her heart thundering in her ears, Maria tried to focus on their surroundings. The cool, slick rocks beneath them offered some traction as they landed, the water pulling away for now. She squinted into the inky dark, desperately searching for any sign of what lay ahead. "Stay close," David said, guiding them forward. The little girl whimpered, and Maria felt the tug of maternal instinct rise within her. It ignited something fierce. They had to protect this child. As they slowly moved from the spot where they landed, the ground began to slope. The air shifted slightly. It was warmer here, almost like a breath of life in the stillness. After a few careful steps, they emerged into a dimly lit cavern. Flickering shadows danced against the stone walls as small beams of light streamed in from cracks above. The glow reflected off the water pooling at their feet, lending an ethereal quality to their new surroundings. "Is this safe?" Maria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her intuition screamed danger, but they were alive, and that had to mean something good. David scanned the cavern, his brow furrowed. "Better than being swept away," he replied, his practicality grounding her fear momentarily. "We need to figure out where we are." "Look! There!" The little girl pointed, her voice echoing softly. Maria followed her gaze to a path that twisted deeper into the cavern. "Let's go," David urged, taking the lead, and Maria fell in step behind him. Holding the girl's tiny hand, she could feel the warmth of her spirit, a reminder of why they had to keep fighting. As they followed the path, the vastness of the cavern wrapped around them, the echo of their footsteps the only proof that they existed in this bizarre world. But as they walked, a low rumble began to emanate from the depths, a resonant growl that sank right into Maria's bones. David stopped suddenly, turning sharply. "What is that?" Maria strained her ears, her heart racing at the thought of another impending disaster. "It sounds big." "Whatever it is, we need to move faster," David commanded, his tone shifting to urgency. Tugging the girl along, they picked up their pace. Water splashed beneath their feet, but panic surged once again as the rumble intensified, shaking the very ground. The shadows around them morphed, and Maria's mind conjured horrors lurking just out of view. "We shouldn't stay here," she urged, fear rising like bile. David nodded, taking a breath, steeling himself. "We'll find a way out, together." But the rumbling erupted into a deafening roar, and the ground quaked beneath them once more.
In that moment, a beam of light broke through the ceiling, illuminating a path forward. It was a beacon of hope, but would it lead them to safety or to their doom? With each step, Maria felt the weight of uncertainty settle deeper within her. The child beside her looked up, eyes wide with trust, and in that moment, Maria realized they weren't just trying to survive. They were fighting to protect the spark of innocence that still existed amid the chaos. What if we're too late? Maria thought, a tight knot forming in her stomach. They surged forward, driven by fear and hope, but the roar behind them was relentless. What chased them in the dark? They had to find answers, and soon. Would they uncover a way to escape this nightmare, or would the shadows consume them entirely? As they raced down the newly illuminated path, the air thickened with tension. The ground quaked rhythmically beneath their feet, each tremor a reminder of the lurking danger just behind them. Light flickered unpredictably, casting eerie shapes on the rough surface of the cavern walls. Maria's heart pounded in her chest, keeping time with the echo of the terrifying roar reverberating through the darkness. "David, we can't keep running blindly," Maria shouted, a mix of terror and resolve fueling her voice. "We need a plan." David glanced back briefly, his expression a mix of determination and desperation. "We just need to get out of this section. There has to be a way out at the end of this path." The girl tugged at Maria's hand, her little face etched with both fear and trust. Maria squeezed her hand, trying to convey strength she didn't fully feel. They pressed on, the light in front offering some semblance of hope, but with each step, the roar grew louder, more menacing. "Look, there's a crack in the wall," the little girl shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. Maria's eyes darted to the side, spotting a narrow opening just off the path. "Maybe it's a hiding spot," she proposed, her instincts kicking in. "We can catch our breath and see what's chasing us." David nodded, his resolve shifting into action. "Let's dive in!" With one swift movement, he pulled the girl into the gap, and Maria followed tightly behind, pressing herself against the cold stone. The roar faded slightly as they crouched within the confines of the crevice. Shadows flickered just beyond their hiding place, and Maria held her breath, straining to hear what was happening outside. The rumbling shook the walls, and she feared they might be discovered at any moment. "Do you think it will pass?" she whispered, anxiety tightening her throat. David didn't reply, but the fear etched on his face told her all she needed to know. The cavern felt alive, it breathed around them, and the distant growls suggested something huge and powerful was stalking the shadows. Minutes felt like hours as they waited silently. Maria's thoughts raced.
Their hope now hinged on a sliver of faith that they would survive this ordeal. What lay beyond the cavern? Would they even want to find out? Suddenly, the roar shifted. It was closer now, deep and guttural. Maria felt a chill creep up her spine, realizing whatever it was might be searching for them. The girl beside her trembled, and Maria wished she could chase away the fear. She had to be strong, not just for herself, but for the little spirit who placed her trust in them. "What if we move back to the path?" Maria suggested, her voice barely a whisper. "We might lose it if we don't act soon." David nodded, and they shared a glance filled with unspoken understanding. They couldn't be paralyzed by fear. They had to keep fighting for each other. As they prepared to edge back out, they froze. The growl turned into a screech, unlike anything they had heard before. It reverberated through the cavern and sent tangible vibrations through their bodies. What emerged into the flickering light froze them in place. A hulking shadow lurched into view, its massive form silhouetted against the dim light. Fear gripped Maria's heart as she stumbled back into the wall, the weight of the moment crashing over her. The creature's eyes glinted like obsidian, locked onto their hiding place with an intelligence that sent icy fingers of dread curling in her gut. "What do we do?" she whispered, panic rising with every passing second. David gazed down the path, then back at the approaching monster. "We have to go now," he urged, gathering the little girl close. The creature moved closer, and suddenly every heartbeat seemed to sink with each step. Without thinking, Maria took hold of the girl's hand. "Run!" she yelled, and they bolted back onto the path, desperate for escape. But as they fled, the creature's roar crescendoed, and a sense of dread washed over Maria. What had they unleashed in their frantic bid for survival? With danger looming closer still, the trio dashed deeper into the cavern, uncertainty folding around them like a suffocating blanket. Would they evade the creature, or would it be their final chase against shadows? As they hurtled forward, the answer hung heavy in the air, entwined with their fates. As they sprinted down the cavern path, Maria's breath came in ragged gasps, each inhalation a mix of fear and adrenaline. The shadows around them danced, playing tricks with her mind, reminding her of every horror she'd ever imagined. It was hard to know where the flickering light ended and the darkness began. David glanced ahead, his eyes darting between the jagged rocks. "There, a tunnel," he shouted, pointing to the left where a darker void beckoned. "We can hide in there." With no time for hesitation, they made a sharp turn. The opening felt almost inviting, a darker comfort compared to the chaos behind them. Maria pulled the girl along, her mind racing. They needed to hide, but would they find safety or simply trade one danger for another?
As soon as they slipped into the tunnel, Maria pressed her back against the cool stone wall, giving the girl a reassuring squeeze. "We're safe for now," she whispered, though doubt gnawed at her insides. She could still hear the monster's roar echoing in her mind, a terrifying soundtrack to their peril. David crouched low, scanning their surroundings. In the dim light, Maria could barely make out the walls, glistening and damp, as if the tunnel itself was alive. "We have to be quiet," he urged, though his voice was barely a whisper. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, her tiny fingers digging into Maria's side. Maria gently stroked her hair, trying to convey her own sense of calm amidst the storm of fear swirling in her heart. "What's your name?" she asked softly, hoping for a distraction. "Lila," the girl replied, her voice shaky but determined. "Are we going to be okay?" Maria swallowed hard. "Yes, Lila, we're going to be okay." She hoped it was true as she searched the darkness, wondering what lay ahead. Moments dragged on, heavy and uncertain. Suddenly, a low rumble vibrated through the tunnel, and the entrance felt like it was closing in on them. Panic seeped back into her heart as Maria held her breath, straining to hear. "Stay close," David commanded, his grip on Leela tightening. He began to inch further into the dark, dragging Leela and Maria along behind him. They moved cautiously, each footfall whispering on the cool earth. The tunnel twisted and turned like a labyrinth, with shadows that seemed to shift with them. Maria glanced back, half expecting the creature to emerge at any moment, its glowing eyes locking onto them. "Keep going. We can't stop," David urged, each word laced with urgency. They stumbled on, their pulse racing, desperately seeking a way toward light, toward freedom. Then came a sound. Quiet, but distinctly different from the chaos outside. It was a soft, trickling noise. Water. The realization sparked a flicker of hope. "Maybe there's a stream," whispered Maria, letting the thought of fresh water wash over her like a soothing palm. But hope can be a double-edged sword. What if it leads us back? Muttered Leela, fear creeping back into her voice. As they rounded a final curve, a grove of faint luminescent fungi illuminated a small clearing. There, the underground stream glistened, a stark contrast to the darkness. Maria hesitated. "What is this place?" murmured she, the tranquility contrasting sharply with the terror they'd escaped. "It's
Beautiful, whispered Leela, fear momentarily forgotten as she stepped closer to the water. David crouched, eyeing the current. It could be a way out, but we can't wait too long. Maria felt a surge of protective instinct, but the crunching of stones echoed through the passageway behind them. We need a decision. Now. Panic returned sharply with the threat drawing near. Should we follow the water? Suggested David, hope fading quick beneath the reality of their burdens.
The shadows loomed larger in the entrance, and the creature's silhouette edged closer, a monstrous figure against the glow of the fungi. There was no question now. The choice was clear. "Let's go!" Maria cried, her voice rising defiantly. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." They plunged into the stream, the cold water shocking but invigorating, spurring them forward. With each step, fear surged through Maria, mixed with a fierce determination. The sound of the beast grew louder, a reminder that their only ally was urgency. As they swam deeper into the unknown, she felt the weight of their choices settling around them. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a leap into the heart of the dark, and they were running toward it. What awaited them in the depths of the cavern? Would they find liberation or succumb to the shadows? Each moment whispered that danger trailed behind, but they had stepped into a new chapter where the heart of survival sparked anew. As they glided through the cool stream, Maria's heart thundered with each stroke. Dark shadows flickered just out of reach behind them, but the bioluminescent fungi that illuminated their path whispered promises of hope. The air felt electric, charged with a newfound determination to press on. The sound of their frantic splashes harmonized with the distant growl, transforming into a wild symphony of survival. "Keep moving," David encouraged, his voice cutting through the darkness. Leela's tiny hand gripped Maria's tightly, lending her strength even as every instinct screamed at her to turn back. As they navigated the twisting turns of this subterranean world, Maria's thoughts raced. She remembered her family, her mother and siblings waiting for her. She thought of all the countless nights spent fighting for them, and suddenly, as if fate decided to intervene, she recognized a glimmer of clarity. They were not just fighting for survival, they were also chasing the dream and belief that had propelled her through every hardship. "Let's go faster," she called out, this time fueled by a surge of clarity. The current grew stronger as they pushed through, the glow of the mushrooms lighting their path like stars guiding lost travelers. The dark abyss stretched endlessly behind them, yet a new sound beckoned, a soft and welcoming hum that felt warm against the chill of the cavern. "Can you hear that?" Leela gasped, her excitement bubbling over as if she could sense their imminent escape. David turned, eyes bright with an unyielding spark of determination. "That's the sound of life! Come on!" Just as they rounded the final bend of the twisting tunnel, they emerged from the water onto solid ground, spilling out into an otherworldly glade drenched in silver moonlight. The gentle luminescent glow surrounded them, revealing a world untouched by despair, a sanctuary against the horrors they had escaped. "Look!" Leela squealed, her fear forgotten as she pointed excitedly at the path ahead, vibrant and alive with plants swaying softly like dancers in the breeze. "We can go this way!" It felt like nature itself welcomed them, a stark contrast to the murky terror that had chased them. Maria felt a surge of warmth flood her heart. In this moment, beneath a blanket of stars with David and Leela by her side, everything else faded away. The floods, the beast, the societal divides that had seemed so vast before. She realized they were now bound by this shared experience, transformed by their struggle, with courage blazing like a beacon. "Let's stick together," she reminded them, her voice steady. They followed Leela along the glowing path, Maria and David exchanging glances charged with trust and a promise to shield one another from the remnants of fear still lingering in their hearts. As they ventured deeper into the glade, the sound of rushing water replaced the toxic roar of catastrophe that chased them moments ago. A gentle, sparkling waterfall cascaded nearby, its essence sparkling like diamonds in the darkness. The sight wrapped around them like a warm embrace, solidifying the truth that they had made it through, that they were safe. In that moment,
Maria took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of wild jasmine mixed with something fresh and untainted. She felt the weight of worry slip away, a cathartic release that sparked joyful tears. Leela danced ahead, twirling in the moonlight as she laughed, her carefree spirit a reminder of the beauty they had fought to protect. Then David stepped closer to her. "Maria," he began, holding her gaze, vulnerability clear in his eyes. "We did it together." And suddenly, the past melted away. The uncertainty that once clouded their worlds lifted, revealing a boundless fountain of possibilities ahead of them. They were no longer simply a maid and a businessman, but two souls intertwined under the same relentless stars, brought together by struggle, resilience, and a newfound love that had blossomed beautifully amidst the darkest of storms. "Let's go make sure everyone else made it too," she said, a sense of purpose overwhelming her. A wide smile broke across David's face. "Together." And as they set off into the night hand in hand, Maria felt the promise of tomorrow, the power to transform not just their futures, but the lives of everyone in their community. They would rebuild stronger, together, fortified by this unexpected love coursing through them like a river unyielding to any storm. In this defining moment, she knew she had found her place. She would always be the protector, the devoted daughter, and now, a partner willing to dive into the unknown, arms wide open. Together, they would navigate whatever tides came next. Don't let this journey end here.
Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the love. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.